This is episode 83 of the Death to Tyrants podcast.
The crushing weight of the tyrant's passage had left nothing unmarked.
You get split in fucking half, but I call him the hologram wrath. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Death to Tyrants podcast. As always, I'm your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson, coming to you out of Austin, Texas. Today, we have the bright, young, awesome Antonia Okafor on the show. So when I grew up, these gun right advocate groups were kind of, I guess represented by, it seemed like, kind of old grumpy guys. And within the last decade or so, maybe even more recent, there's been an influx of fresh, young voices that might not look like the old ones. And whether it's Antonia, my buddy Jose Nino, who's excellent on gun rights, Maj Toure from Black Guns Matter, there's a fresh take on the Second Amendment now, and it's so good to see that. And it's good to have Antonia on the show. She's got quite the bio here, as you'll see in a second. And I wanted to get her on here and talk to her about what she's doing, what all she's doing, which is a lot, and get you guys a fresh new voice, a perspective on the Second Amendment. And so that's what we do today. Just a quick warning. For some reason, there were a few short spots in the interview where Antonia's voice got muffled and broke up just a bit. My audio guy tried his best to clean it up, and he is the best, but you'll probably still hear a few spots where maybe a word or two is hard to understand. Just wanted to let you guys know. Antonia Okafor is the Director of Outreach and a national spokesperson for Gun Owners of America. Antonia is the founder of Empowered 2A, a national student organization that advocates for the Second Amendment rights of high school and college women. In November of 2019, Empowered 2A merged with Gun Owners of America and became its official student organization, which Antonia still runs and directs. She is also one of 5 fellows in the newly created Falkirk Center of Liberty University. We get into that as well, guys. The Falkirk Center seeks to educate the public about the Christian faith through the gospel and how those principles are harmonious with the freedom principles instilled in America's founding. Antonia's key role as a fellow will be to educate the public on the God-given right to self-defense. We get into all of this stuff. She's a busy lady, and she's very bright. I'm glad to have her here today. Please welcome to Death to Tyrants, Antonia Okafor. Antonia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've got a lot going on. I've been doing a lot of research on you, and I want to hit upon all of that stuff that you're doing. Before that, kind of give my listeners a background and an intro on really what you do, who you are, and what got you into politics. I believe, wait a sec, also you're a fellow Texan, aren't you?
I am a fellow Texan native, yes.
Are you up in Dallas?
I was until recently, this year. I just moved in January to Colorado and got married here. So
great.
I'm with the husband, but yeah, native Texan, and was there for 29 years. Hopefully I'll come back, but yeah.
All right, well, talk some more about yourself, your background, and what got you into politics.
Yeah, so essentially, I definitely don't have the average, gun rights activist background. Didn't have my dad, take me hunting and kind of get me into gun culture or whatnot. Early on, I actually didn't even shoot a gun until I was 25 in grad school, and that was actually 2 years after I started getting into the gun rights movement on college campuses. So in grad school, I actually became the Southwest Director for Students for Concealed Carry. They were essentially the pioneers with the campus carry movement. We got that passed in Texas, and I became, kind of like the leader in that aspect, especially since people are just like, who is this Black woman who's trying to advocate for concealed carry on college campuses. And after that, kind of did some stuff with NRA and other organizations as well. And yeah, just kept going with the movement, and essentially it got into the gun rights or women's rights movement that I also helped pioneer as well. which essentially is just bringing female empowerment and gun ownership together and essentially bringing it part of the feminist movement. So, but yeah, my story background, even before then, my parents were Democrats, still Democrats. I was actually, voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012, and didn't really, consider the Second Amendment really, or gun rights or self-defense until college, when I was really getting into the whole campus sexual assault awareness movement. That really was an extension of, at that time, being a modern feminist and really, talking about what happens with after the fact in a sexual assault by the perpetrator, and that focus there. But finally realizing that we could do something to prevent those issues is what really got me into the Second Amendment movement of protecting myself and protecting my fellow female peers.
So you did not start out as a conservative or libertarian. Is that how you would consider yourself now politically?
Yeah, I would say, I know this was back and forth. Just for it to be easy for most people, I would say I'm a conservative. But then I would say I'm a small L libertarian in a lot of aspects. I don't believe in the war on drugs. And I don't believe, basically a prohibition in that sense. So which kind of differs from a lot of more social conservatives. But I would definitely say I went from, voting Democrat to getting into the liberty movement, and essentially going from there and really focusing on the gun rights aspect of things.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the gun rights aspect of things. You work with the GOA, like you mentioned, and you're the founder of the Empower Group. And before we talk about that specifically, talk some about the GOA. I feel that they don't get enough press because I've always thought, I've appreciated that they're kind of a hardcore gun advocate group compared to some of the other ones. Can you talk about them?
Yeah. So as soon as early as last year, I've become the director of outreach for Gun Owners of America. And also they've acquired Empower 2A, which is my student organization that I started 2 years ago. And essentially, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with them when it comes to the student movement and getting people involved, like the concealed carry movement, and getting more students educated on the Second Amendment, which, GOA has always been the no compromise organization, where a lot of people will run to and go to when they know that they're going to take a really strong stance on the Second Amendment and our natural rights. So GOA has been doing that for years now, and more and more people are starting to learn that they really are the organization that is our go-to when it comes to Second Amendment rights. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff when it comes to student organizations. We're going to also be reaching a lot of women as well, which I've been doing already as a firearms instructor in Colorado, and doing all female courses, concealed carry courses for free here in Colorado. And then also reaching out to a lot of minority groups, including African-American groups, Hispanic, in places like historically Black universities and colleges like Spelman, like Clark Atlanta, like Howard, that really have been passed over by a lot of Second Amendment groups and have not been able to relate to people on those campuses. So we're going to be doing a lot of those things in the future. And
Is there a growing element within the Black community that's kind of breaking away from the, stereotype of just being Democrats? Is there a trend at all for being pro-Second Amendment within inner cities?
With that question, in my own experience, especially since I said that I was, voted for Obama in the past, not too long ago, relative to what I'm doing today. And essentially it was the gun rights movement, the gun rights issue that brought me into the liberty movement. And we're seeing when it comes to, rates of concealed carry and people who are actually becoming new gun owners, it is really, people who look like me, Black women, who are the fastest growing demographic group of gun owners. And so on that issue. In that issue, I think the gun rights, type of issue is really what's bringing a lot of African Americans and minorities in general, or women as well, into the whole conversation. And have we really seen people going from Democrat to Republican or Democrat to Libertarian because of that issue yet? Not as much as I think a lot of people would hope, but I think it's definitely a window. It's an avenue that we can use in order to get more people into believing, about our beliefs in the God-given rights that we have, and really espousing, the freedom principles that our founders has used as part of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence.
Does it feel to you ever that there's an attempt by, I don't know if you would just want to call it the establishment of sorts, or maybe leftists, to put people of your particular demographic into an ideological box, like a 3x5 index card? This is how you should think. Look at you. Does that feel like that at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was when I finally realized that, as a Democrat, as a quote unquote progressive, which some people tell me that you really probably were just liberal, in the classic sense of the word, because you actually were free thinking. But at that time, it was really realizing, that a lot of especially particularly the Democrat Party was using or taking advantage of the fact that a lot of us will just say, we're not going to look at our values and see if they actually are reconciled with the party, and more so just look at, okay, the rhetoric of, well, that other party or that other organization is racist. And so you shouldn't look over there because, they don't want you, they don't accept you, they're racist, they're sexist, they're misogynist, right? At the same time, having values, I always say that African Americans and Hispanics, particularly, have very conservative upbringings. I know I did. My parents are Roman Catholic. They're immigrants, Nigerian immigrants. And so a lot of our values really are liberty focused, individual, personal freedom focused type of, values, but have just never been reconciled with the party that we've been in. So I do think that has been part of their strategy, and it has worked very well on the leftist side. And I think individually, people are waking up to the reality that you have to vote your values, you have to vote what you actually believe in, and that's most important.
I've had Maj Touré of Black Guns Matter on this show, and he was big on detailing the kind of racist history of the gun control movement in this country. Is that something you try to explain to people as well? Do you ever discuss that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think, just like Maj, and I love what he's been doing for years as well, bringing up that history is unfortunately something that is not taught. Obviously, it's not taught in public schools or in education in general, mainstream, forms of media. So a lot of people don't even know, whether white or Black or whatever. I've had to do my own history, how to educate myself and do my own type of learning when it comes to the fact that Black codes and slave codes, Jim Crow laws, all of that is part of the American history going back to slavery, and all of that has to do with gun control. That the fact that the KKK literally started as a gun control group in the South, wanting to make sure that freed slaves were not able to protect themselves when they were literally going to the porches of their homes and trying to lynch them. They would use shotguns and rifles to protect themselves from those people. So we've had a long history, particularly as Black people, of using firearms to protect ourselves and those that we care about. It's only really the recent history, the last few decades, when the progressive movement essentially gave them an ultimatum, the Black community, of, we will help you with your civil rights movement, but you're going to have to take on these values. That essentially one of them was the anti-gun issue, and in order for us to help you. And so that's a compromise that I believe historically the Black community has used in order to get their rights, the civil rights movement pushed. But unfortunately, it also has let go of our long history of being pro-gun as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, you mentioned a little bit earlier, let's talk about Empowered, the organization. Am I correct in that you started it, you're the founder of it, and now it's part of GOA, or was it created as part of GOA? How does that work?
Yeah. So I started it myself over 2 years ago, actually. I like to say, really, I started it before the IRS said it was, gave me the stamp of approval that it was a 501c3. But you know how it works with the federal government. It doesn't exist until they say it does. So,
Yeah, right.
a little over 2 years ago, IRS started taking money from us. But the movement, the idea came about actually in 2015. When I went to a young women's leadership summit, and my background is that I'm a sexual assault survivor, and that happened years ago before even college. But it was college that made me realize that sexual assault did happen on college campuses, and a lot of narrative was on one side. It was the feminist movement. It was the rape culture movement that said that we had to focus on perpetrators after the fact. And men are horrible, of course, because they're the ones who are continuously pushing that narrative or pushing that type of attack on campus. And then the other side would talk about the Second Amendment side, which would inevitably try to not talk about rape culture or not talk about sexual assault, or try to diminish the 1 in 4 number, the 1 in 5 number. But for me, as a woman, as a young woman, and a sexual assault survivor, and having conservative values, I really didn't believe that those two worlds couldn't come together. That we couldn't talk about how female empowerment is important for women, and sexual assault does occur on college campuses, but also talk about the fact that we can prevent issues like that from happening, that we can empower women on campus to protect themselves and not have to wait for campus police or administrators to tell them how they can defend themselves and their body. So I brought those two worlds together with Empowered to really pushing the narrative of gun rights are women's rights. That these two worlds can come together, and we can really bring people who are have been on the liberal side but are pro-gun, or on the other side of things being pro-Second Amendment, but don't really want to talk about the female empowerment / feminism narrative of things, and bring those two worlds together. So it's been really impactful, and I've been going to college campuses all over the country for the last 2 years, from UC Berkeley to Yale Law to Harvard, to Mount Holyoke. I've been able to speak to students who have been on both sides of the aisle, and really convert a lot of women to realizing that gun rights actually empower them, because you're not going to get that narrative from the current modern feminist movement or even media. So, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and it's the people like myself that have been out of the college lifestyle for quite some time. We see all this scary stuff, read these articles, watch these videos on YouTube, a lot of it with the Jordan Peterson hype. And it's like, surely it's not that crazy on college campuses. This can't be representative of every college campus. What is it like on these campuses? And is it as crazy as it seems?
Oh man. Yeah, it is definitely crazy. I mean, in my own personal experience, and I kind of have to be careful here too, because since I've been doing this for a while, it's almost like, essentially I've had to develop a thick skin. There have definitely been hit pieces written about me when they find out that I'm going to speak on a college campus. I remember when I spoke at St. Mary's, which is traditionally this Catholic university, part of all-girl university that was originally part of Notre Dame, and saying that I'm a white supremacist, or I'm pushing the white supremacist agenda, or I'm a white supremacist collaborator because I believe that people should have AR-15s, things like that. I try to just kind of at this point have been able to just brush off my shoulders and just continue on. But I mean, almost 2 years ago, it was Hampshire College when I was in Massachusetts on a speaking tour. I was about to speak at Hampshire College literally 2 hours before the event. They canceled my speech, and the email that was sent to the students that invited me to campus was that, quote, "The Second Amendment is too controversial of an issue to talk about." And so that was their justification for canceling my speech 2 hours before I was set to speak and have people all over the state coming to come see me. So that blew up, unfortunately, in their face and became international news just, a few hours after. But it's definitely a reflection of what really is going on campus when we can't even talk about the Bill of Rights without, having administrators cancel that because it's quote too controversial. So yeah, that's definitely the temperature on college campuses these days, unfortunately.
And you've been called a white supremacist?
Oh yeah, white supremacist. In fact, right when that happened, I had a white woman student. It was all in caps, so I made sure that I put it on my social media, and she was just like, "We have to stop this alt-right white supremacist woman from going on college campuses in our area and stuff like that." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like they know
Have they
that
seen you?
Do they know I'm Black? First of all, I really want to make sure they know I'm Black. But
Right.
second of all, but yeah, I've been called that a white supremacist collaborator from other Black men in the leftist movement. So yeah, I've been called all sorts of names like that.
How about a Russian asset? Has that been thrown at you yet?
Yeah, I feel like that's trendy now. So I haven't been called that yet.
Okay, well, there's still time. There's plenty of time.
Exactly, right. The trends, yeah.
So how has the success been for the campus carry legislation and how's that going?
So we've had over 10 states now have pushed forth with campus carry in that bill. Texas and Georgia were the biggest states that successfully implemented that law. So it looks different for every state most of the time. For Texas and Georgia, is essentially the same. All public universities, any institution, an educational institution that had or was granted public funding had to implement campus carry, concealed carry. And then Georgia, unfortunately, didn't allow the fact that they wouldn't allow child care centers to have on college campuses to have concealed carry. But other than that, it's the same for most of the places. But we definitely have holdouts, like, for example, places you wouldn't expect, like Florida, that likes to kind of act like, it's one of the biggest gun rights states in the country, will still not allow campus carry. And unfortunately, it is definitely, I talk about it all the time, about it being not being a partisan issue, and the fact that there are people on both sides who don't want concealed carry on campus. We've had Republicans over and over again shut down campus carry, whether it's in Florida or recently in Nevada in their last session. It was a Republican that stabbed other Republicans in the back, and that no vote was essentially what killed the campus carry in Nevada. So we definitely have people on both sides who just don't understand the liberty aspect of being able to have your God-given rights off and on campus. But we're trying to push that with Empower 2A, and that's why GOA has acquired Empower 2A, and I'm really pushing that movement because it's going to enable us to really have a national structure and impact on these states that need help to push this very important legislation.
Is it easier in your experience to affect change in this way at a local level, or is it easy to hit it at a national level for groups like GOA and lobbying arms?
Yeah, so with like most gun rights bills, it's on a state level that's going to be implemented and passed. And so it's really the state representatives, the senators that, are going to enable these states to have campus carry. Yes, sure. Is it great on a national level? Or even for President Trump to say something like, I support campus carry? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the state level. And that's kind of why it's hard in that aspect, because you have to convince every single state, every single legislative body, Republican or Democrat, in order to push that legislation. You also, with campus carry, there's a whole different level of the higher education world coming in, and for the most part, always being pro-gun control and anti-gun, and always using presidents of universities, chancellors, student governments of universities to lobby against these bills. And so that's the added effort or impact that really makes passing things like this really difficult.
Which politicians, if you can think of any off the top of your head, have been friendly to Second Amendment issues and the GOA in general?
Ooh, I don't want to call out people right now, but I'm just trying to say who's been really pro GOA. Well, I mean, probably one of the most well-known ones, Rand Paul. Ron Paul is the one who, we've gotten the whole quote, the only no compromise gun lobby in America. That's Ron Paul. Thomas Massey has been a friend to GOA for a long time as well. All of those on the national level. But we definitely have people who, have been really great to us on the state level. We have Rachel Malone, who's our Texas state director, and has been really pushing gun rights with GOA in Texas, because a lot of people, for example, think Florida, they think Texas, they think Oklahoma, for example, and they think, oh, it should be easy for us to pass campus carry on campus carry. But we've had even people that have been quote unquote conservative champions, like Dan Patrick, who has come out recently for universal background checks, stuff like that we have to really come up against. So yeah, it's been difficult on that front, but we definitely have our allies as well. And we've been very thankful for that.
Is the red flag laws, is that an issue that GOA's having to fight quite a bit?
Absolutely. So red flag laws is something, we've had to come out again, the whole Republican-Democrat divide of it's not always that simple. In fact, a lot of Republicans have come out for red flag laws, which GOA is completely and 100% against. We don't believe any type of red flag laws constitutional or effective. And it's been shown study after study that is true. There's no such thing as a good red flag law. And so we've had to push against that, whether it comes from Texas, like we talk about Dan Patrick, and other leaders like, Senator or Speaker Bonin of Texas and other states as well. I know Dan Crenshaw has said a couple of statements that were pro red flag laws that we've had to come against. But even big organizations, think tanks like Heritage Foundation, saying that red flag laws are a good idea, we've had to come out against as well. So sometimes that makes us, not so, what's the word?
Fashionable.
Not the favorites. Yeah. When it comes to that, but we are, again, no compromise. And we've been trying to push that message and educate the public about why it's really a detriment and is really dangerous to everybody.
How has Donald Trump been on gun issues in your estimation?
Oh, man. We've definitely been vocal about things that he's done and said that have been anti-gun, and we have not been afraid to call those things out, whether it's the bump stock ban that he pushed forth, whether even just recently with red flag laws, where he really was pushing that narrative after those mass shootings with Walmart and in Texas. So we had to come out against those type of things.
Has there been any positive aspects of him for it?
Positive in the fact sometimes that he will back off. For example, right now, we really thought we were going to have a fight when the session came back after the summer, because a lot of people were seeing things like the universal background checks, like Dan Patrick, pushed forth in Texas, and things like that. That narrative was getting really dangerous. And again, that was something that Trump pushed right after the mass shooting. So thankfully, things like that have been quiet. He also, with his pick for the Attorney General, Barr was actually also, pushed down as well. And so that's been positive, but we are always on guard and ready for, unfortunately, when he will say something that is, anti-gun. So we're hoping to continue to educate the public. And that means also those like Dan Crenshaw or like people who have been, celebrities in that fact in the Republican Party, or who are big champions of conservatives, to make sure that regardless of what party they're on or what side they're on, that they know that we're watching them, and we will correct them and educate as soon as we can when that happens.
Excellent. One of the other things that you're newly involved in, I believe, is this new think tank at Liberty University. You want to talk some about that?
Yeah. So I've been very blessed to be a part of the inaugural year of the Liberty University Center for Politics, which is called the Falkirk Center. I'm one of 5 other fellows, and I'm going to be I'm not going to say the only champion for the Second Amendment, but that is definitely my expertise and my issue going forth. So really, essentially, I'm a believer in Christ, and those values are important to me, but really the founding principles from the framers, really go with Judeo-Christian values, anyways, and that includes our God-given right to self-protection and protecting ourselves. So, yeah, I'm going to be kind of partnering in that aspect, but it's just really something that goes really well. What GOA has said for a long time, anyways, God-given rights, and pushing for the Second Amendment and bringing it into a community that might not have or doesn't really know much about what the Second Amendment really is.
One of the articles I was reading, it seemed kind of like maybe a counterweight of sorts to kind of fight the growing push for socialism and nihilism and things like that on college campus. Is it something like that?
Absolutely. So essentially, the whole problem that we've seen with even the narrative, unfortunately, is that the left are really trying to go in the realm of Christianity and Christian beliefs and trying to co-opt it for themselves and their own benefit, and just using just egregious forms of blatant hearsay and saying things that are completely not in scripture. For example, the whole Jesus was a socialist, when it's clearly obvious in the Bible that Christ wanted people to help the poor, but voluntarily, something that was based on their own heart, not because of the government mandating them to do things like that.
Right.
The same thing with self-defense. There's a lot of scripture that really does point to actually, defending yourselves and defending other people, but the anti-gun left has used that in their favor to make it seem that Christians are pacifists and they can't use firearms to protect those they care about, which is, completely false. I think stuff like that can be important. They're going to be educating kids with videos and stuff like that to help people, like, Jesus is not a socialist, or the scripture does actually support self-defense and stuff like that. So to really help people be able to go against the anti-gun left who are really trying to co-opt Christianity in general.
Well, a chat with a well-known conservative voice wouldn't be complete without asking about maybe being kind of screwed around somehow by a media site. Tell us about your experience that you sent me this article on something that YouTube did to you.
Oh, yeah. So a few months ago, so essentially we had a podcast, which we did on YouTube, and this was before GOA, with Empowered 2A. Me and my general counsel, and Nina, who's a straight up big L libertarian, had a podcast that was on YouTube, and we had just interviewed a guest, Amy Robbins of Alexa Athletica, who has the really amazing concealed carry pants and athletic pants, essentially Lululemons for the concealed carry world. And we had just uploaded that video, and essentially the morning after that upload, I got an email from YouTube telling me that first they were going to completely take away our super chats, which is essentially a way that people who are in live comments are able to have their comment highlighted if they pay a certain amount of money. So they took that away. And then I got an email right after that saying, oh, by the way, not only that, we're also we're demonetizing your entire channel. And so all of your videos are demonetized and you won't be able to make any type of money from it. But even more so, you won't be able to have any advertisements on them. So that's when I screenshotted that and sent it to Dave Rubin, who I've been good friends with for a long time now. And he actually had issues with YouTube before, about a year before, with his whole channel getting about 70% of his videos demonetized.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent that to him, and he was just like, I've never seen this before. This is literally the first time where the entire channel was demonetized. And so he pushed that screenshot out. A lot of other people in the conservative media started looking at it, retweeting it. And then Breitbart did a whole investigative piece into it, and actually even talked to the YouTube representatives at the end because it got such a big media push after people started tweeting about it. And I was able to briefly have my channel back. And they told me, oh, it was a mistake. And they never even told me. They told Breitbart, a YouTube representative told Breitbart that it was quote unquote a mistake and that we're going to change it. But after that whole thing died down, I got another email saying that they were demonetizing it again. And after that, I've had several interviews on YouTube where the interviewer would tell me later that they've tried to put my name in the title, and literally just right after they do that, their video would be demonetized until they change the title where my name is not in the title anymore. Will they re-up that monetization of of that video? So yeah, wow. it's been a journey. So it's been kind of interesting.
Well, as we wrap up here, I kind of want to just hand the floor over to you. Talk about anything you got coming up, anything we haven't hit upon that you'd like to get out to the folks, and where they can find you online, all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, if anyone's going to be at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit, GOA and Empower 2A are going to kind of make their debut out there with a lot of information at that event at West Palm Beach, December 19th to 22nd. So we'll be there. Any students are wanting to join GOA and the Empower 2A movement. But really, we're going to have a big push in fall of 2020. And we're really excited to really get Empower 2A on a national level and pushing, that no compromise gun stance that GOA has been doing or been a part of for years now. So be looking out for that. And if people want to join now, you can go to empowered2a.org to get more information as well and sign up.
Excellent. That's good stuff. Thank you, Antonia Okafor, for doing the show with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed my chat with Antonia Okafor. What a cool lady. Thank you again, Antonia, for being here. I will link to some stuff in the show notes page for her. I've definitely got the link to Empowered 2A in there. And we got a great video link from YouTube. If you look for her on YouTube, you'll see all kinds of good stuff. There's one she's particularly known for from PragerU. The video is entitled Black, Millennial, Female, and Conservative. Ooh, that's sure to make a few heads explode. As always, I will link to my stuff in the show notes page. You know where to find me at this point, I hope. Facebook.com/Death to Tyrants podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at BuckRebel, BuckRebel. You can donate to this show via Patreon at patreon.com/Death to Tyrants. And if you love the way this show sounds, if you've noticed as of late, the past month or two, the production has been on point. You know why? Because it's not just me doing it anymore. It's my man Chris Williams over at Podsworth Media. And if you're doing a podcast and you think, how do I get my sound to sound like the Death to Tyrants podcast or the Tom Woods Show podcast or even the Bob Murphy Show as well? Well, Chris Williams over there, the man, he does all of these shows. He's the producer, puts it all together, and makes us sound like we actually know what we're doing. Could you imagine that? So give him a visit if that's something you're into. Also, he does music and bands, stuff like that too. It's not just podcasts, but find Chris Williams over at Podsworth Media, podsworth.com. And until next week, guys, it has been an enjoyable episode to bring to you. You guys have a great week.
You get split in fucking half, but I call him the hologram wrath. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Death to Tyrants podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.